Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, and we battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time, according to two film geeks from Wiltshire, England. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a review and subscribe. Hello, Podderoonies. I think that word is very apt for this week, as The French Dispatch will be out not this week, but next week. But I thought we'll fit it in here because it comes out the same day as another big movie that we want to cover. And obviously the director of that film is Wes Anderson. So I'll be picking our favourite Wes Anderson films. And before you start shouting at the podcast of like, why have you not picked Grand Budapest Hotel? Well, we picked that one when we did Ralph Fiennes films, actually one of our most popular podcasts. So if you love that film, check that one out.
Yeah. It was an amazing movie.
Yes. And you've heard him already. Too impatient to wait for his introduction. I am with the encyclopedia man, that is Mr. Boaz Dix. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing good. The weather is freaking horrible, though.
Yes. So if you hear a buzz in the background, rain. It's because it's absolutely peeing it down in where we are at the moment in England, sunny England. Yeah. As you might be aware already, we have a Buy Me a Coffee account, so if you like what you hear, you can show your appreciation by buying us a coffee. So if you look at the show notes below, follow the link, just a few pounds, that's it, would be amazing. So, should we go with my pick first?
Yeah.
My pick is Moonrise Kingdom. I was kind of struggling to find which one I wanted to go with this one. I hadn't seen many Wes Anderson films, really. I'd only seen, Grand Budapest Hotel and Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, truly, that's the only Wes Anderson films I've seen. In fact, before we actually did the podcast with the Grand Budapest Hotel, the Ray Fiennes one, I hadn't even watched that. So I'd only watched the Fantastic Mr. Fox. Yeah,
so certainly, I don't know, it's just one of these directors that has kind of passed me by a bit, and I'm certainly very keen to watch his other films. But I chose this one because I saw on Instagram a thing about, these famous directors of their favourite films, and I'm a big fan of Edgar Wright, and he had Moonrise Kingdom on his list, so I was like, oh, I'll pick that one then. So what happens in Moonrise Kingdom? Well, we start the film on this island and this scout troop. Edward Norton plays a Scoutmaster Ward, and he rallies all the scouts ready for inspection, and then he soon finds out that one of them is missing, Sam, and we then follow Sam walking through the wilderness on this island, and he meets this girl, and it's kind of like a Mexican standoff. You're like, oh, what the hell's going on here? Then we go back in time in a little flashback scene where Sam is watching this theatre production at school, and he just randomly just wanders around and goes backstage and sees this character called Susie in a bird's costume, and it's kind of like love at first sight, but in a very Wes Anderson way, and then we come back to the present, and you soon discover that they've planned to run away together, to get off this island and, just run away together. And then the rest of the film is kind of, up until the halfway point, it's kind of like a chase film, where all the scout leader and the local policemen and their parents all try and find them. And then they get captured. Well, they find them, don't get captured. And then the other scouts kind of feel a bit guilty, and they're like, oh, they're going to use, was it electrical therapy on Sam? It's which is a bit extreme, but because they think he's something wrong with him or something. So the other scouts rescue him and Susie, and then it kind of becomes like a disaster film and like a World War II movie, Great Escape thing where they were escaping a fugitive and all these type of things, story-wise, which I'll get into. Yeah, it's really, really great. What did you make of this one?
Yeah, I quite liked it. He has a very specific visual style and a very specific kind of humor that I don't think is replicated anywhere. It's something you would just never see, ever, except for in his films. I mean, it's a great strength of this film, you know, just how kind of quirky and strange and sort of a bit surreal it all is. And adorable.
It certainly has a very, like, innocent touch to it, which I quite enjoyed. You don't see that very often in certainly comedies in general, I think. So, directing then... Like, the opening scene is really interesting, where we're exploring this house. As you said, we talked in depth about, like, the symmetry of Wes Anderson's compositions a lot when we've talked on the Grand Budapest Hotel. But the camera here is constantly on the move in this opening sequence in a very rigid way, panning at, like, complete 90-degree angles, and the camera moves from room to room in completely straight lines, and it's almost like a computer is like scanning the family's house. It's kind of like void of personality a little bit.
I also thought it was really interesting how like every room depicted in this film, and especially at the start, you know, the kid comes out of his bedroom and you're like, okay, he's out of his bedroom, goes to the living room, follows him to the living room, he's in the center of the shot as he goes to the living room, again classic Wes Anderson, goes into the center of the room, like picks something out, goes into the center of the room. But the camera, all of the rooms, you can see everything in the room from that static shot. It's like there's nothing... So, like, the doorways are freaking massive because he wants to get everything in the room, in every single room. It's like this meticulous detail of everything and of every set. It's almost like a play, you know, in the fact that the camera isn't doing much, but he wants the set to just be... You know, it's like you're the static audience. Yeah, it's immaculate. You're the static audience member. You need to see everything in the room. The camera's not going to zoom in and then guide you through the room. Yeah. You've got to see everything in the room. And it's really interesting. And I did like how it moves from family member to family member. They all go into the sitting room. They're also all sitting in the center of the room. And then she picks out her binoculars and it goes around the house. And then back to her and bang! Dead center. It'll go all the way around the house and then straight to her in her binoculars, dead center. And it does that for a few days, I think. It's like what they're doing, and she's still looking out the window. I thought that was delightful.
Then after the opening scene, like almost the entire film is actually shot outside. So Wes Anderson doesn't have all these great lines he often finds in interior sets to work with, you know, with his symmetry magic. So Wes Anderson has to work with a lot of limitations in this very natural space where there are not many straight lines at all. So he uses a lot more like simple shots to create his classic framing, using the actors to create his visually appealing compositions. And there's even a few like handheld shots, like he had no other choice but to do it like that. And there's a great scene where like Sam and Susie find this like small inlet on the coast, and they climb the rocks on either side, and each shot is mirrored as they jump into the water with the same framing on each other, which feels, you know, really symmetrical, even though there's no straight line in sight. He was just really innovative in how he kept his kind of visual style, but without the symmetry of classic straight lines, you know?
Yeah. I do like it, though, that you still do get symmetries whenever there's some artificial construction in nature. Like, that's straight. So even if nature itself is not perfectly... It's not perfectly symmetric, it's not perfectly level. You know, everything always has to be level with it. But that you'll have something like, say, for example, when the Scoutmaster is going across the camp, you've got a level tree house that doesn't look like it should be there. And, you know, there's the size of it based on, like, the tree that it's on. It shouldn't work. It's a very surreal bit. Or the table as well. There's a dinner table out in the woods or whatever, you know, and that's straight. Or, you know, whenever they try and do houses or churches or backdrops. So I think that's quite interesting. You know, if there's something artificial, he wants that level as hell. And, you know, just everything symmetrical. But yeah, you're right. I think it's good. He even tries to keep this up around, like, nature, which isn't lined and stuff. So it looks a bit... Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
There's an interesting scene where the group of Ivanhoe scouts find Susie and Sam, and it's directed like it's a spaghetti western with all these like intense close-up shots.
Yeah, that was good.
And then when like Redford, played by Lucas Hedges, rides the bike right at them, and you have this great POV shot showing the handlebars, you know, nice and symmetrical, but then as Sam shoots him with the air rifle, and then there you have like a flash of scissors and an arrow pop up.
Yeah.
And then it's all...
Oh, and a dead dog.
And that's all they show in the attack, and it's like a cartoon, and it's just a very charming way of not alienating your audience by trying to show what would realistically happen when a kid shoots an air rifle at someone on a bike, and completely losing the tone of the film. Plus a great visual gag with the bike in the tree, and Susie saying, "Molly's right, I do go berserk."
Yeah, that was fun.
Because I thought it was like a play on censorship or something, because you know the scissors flash up, but it's not. It's just because Susie attacks her with the scissors.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I had this all long elaborate note about a play on censorship. It's like, nope, it's just she attacked him with scissors. They just flash up scissors.
What do you think it meant? It was like symbolising cutting out parts of the movie.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, she literally cut into his side.
Yeah.
I thought it was also funny because it was like the lead up to it. It's so tense. It's like, they're all going for them. And then it's like, bing, boom, 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 just like 3 or 4 little flashes of just not necessarily the action, but the stuff that's happened, the weapons or whatever in the action. So just, you know, bloody pair of scissors, an arrow being loosed, and I think a dead dog, you know, the dog that, you know, would die. And it's just like flash, flash, flash. And then the kid's just running like hell. Like, oh my God! Just running out into the woods.
Weirdly, I didn't feel sad when the dog died.
I don't feel anything for the dog. I didn't even know the bloody dog.
No, this is like the first film I don't feel upset when a animal gets killed. Yeah. Maybe it's because it's a comedy and it's so the humor is so dry in this film.
Yeah, and also you never actually saw it die. It's dead.
No.
And
yeah,
I like the eulogy for it because it was like, he's like, the dog's dead, and he's like, was it a good dog? Like, I don't know. Who knows? You know, but it's dead. So.
Yeah. But I mean, inserting those pictures really, it just keeps this cartoony style and keeps the tone of the film. So you don't need anything really violent of actually what would actually happen in that moment, you know. So that's what I kind of liked about that.
Yeah.
I love the visual comedy at times when they get to Fort Lebanon. Very strange name, Fort Lebanon, but there we go. And they just have a simple conversation walking along, but with Jason Schwartzman's character, and there's all sorts going on in the background with like a small rocket goes off and like lands right next to where it took off. Like there's a kid on a zip line that just goes straight past camera in the background, you know. And then when Sam and Susie go off to discuss their love life, there's just a scout randomly on a trampoline next to them.
Oh yeah, doing backflips and forward flips and spins.
Funny. I love the shot where, Sam is escaping Fort Lebanon and the whole troop is following him around the field in this massive wide shot. And again, it just feels like it's a cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
He's just going all the way around the field with all the scouts following them, not trying to cut them off.
You feel like Benny Hill music should be playing.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And then when he gets struck by lightning, I was like, oh shit, he's dead.
Yeah.
But then I was like, of course he's not dead. Film is so cartoony.
Yeah.
Of course he isn't.
Yeah, he just shoots back up. It's like...
Yeah. Just all covered in the classic soot and stuff, you know. Have you got a favourite shot or scene then?
My favourite shot that kind of blew my mind that I kept going back to, and it was so simple.
All right.
But it's where they're being chased, there's a storm, the dam's going to be burst and what have you. Actually, I have 2 favourite shots.
Okay.
And so he puts on the binoculars, like her binoculars, and he's searching around. And you can see he's looking through a window, yeah? So it's like, he's there, and it seems to have been filmed through a window. So he's like binoculars, and he's looking at the window that it's being filmed from. The camera zooms out, and it's a window that's a house that's part of a stained glass window painting.
Oh, right.
Like, that blew my goddamn mind. Like, I just thought that was amazing. It was like, I thought I was looking through a window. I'm looking through a stained glass window painting of a window. It was like, what the hell? So I had to keep going back to that. I thought, wow, that was a really cool shot.
Okay.
There are many other shots I like. Another shot that I like is randomly throughout the film, there's this historian who is just talking to the camera about about like what was happening on that day and that time. He's talking about the weather and the islands and stuff. It's very strange. It's like a snippet out of a National Geographic documentary.
Bob Balaban.
He's cool. So anyway, I'm not going to talk about the script significance and whether it was good, but my favourite shot with him is they're sailing to this other island, Fort Lebanon and whatever, and they're sailing in the dark with their little boat, and then the camera goes to the island, and he's there, and he's telling you about the island, and he turns on a light so you can see him, and then he explains, the weather, and they're going to have a storm. Turns off the light and kind of just vanishes into the night. He's gone. Their little boats just sail into the...
Yeah.
I just loved that, because it was a very surreal, him talking isn't part of the
I did not.
No, I'm not saying about him narratively. I'm just saying that shot was a damn good shot. Like, that shot was good.
Yeah, I mean, technically it's a good shot, but I'm like, it just took me right out of it, really. Because he goes right up to the camera, turns the light on. I'm like, oh, there's a camera there now. Yeah. I hate it when films where you're made aware that there's a camera there. Yeah. It just annoys me. It's like every time you have blood splatter on the lens, I fucking hate that. I'm just like, oh, I just realised I'm in a film now. It's all fake. I'm just like, why? I don't get that.
Well, it breaks your immersion. So you're not a fan of fourth wall breaks then?
No, I'm a fan of fourth wall breaks. It's just the blood splatter pisses me off, and I'll get into it in scripts, but tonally it fits.
Well, it just, narratively you wouldn't choose it because it just takes you out of it. I don't tend to mind it. I thought it was very strange. But I don't tend to mind it, and I have seen it used in some films where they're like, there's a guy who is basically like, yeah, this is a film, and constantly reminds you. Yeah. And I don't tend to mind it as much, so I'm not going to be as harsh on that. But I did think the shot was technically impressive.
Certainly in that scene, my favourite shot is just this absolutely beautiful wide shot as the scout troop is crossing the river in the boat. After they've rescued Sam and Susie, kind of in semi-silhouette, and, with this amazing, little orange glow as the sun is going down. Just a really stunning image, I thought, those parts. Because certainly Wes Anderson is one of these which will always shoot on film. He's a very traditional film director in terms of how he actually shoots stuff as well. He uses a lot of old technology and stuff. He doesn't use technocranes or anything, which you would think he would, but he doesn't. It's all, tracks and stuff.
So is it just a bunch of guys standing on each other?
Yeah, pretty much.
Need a high shot. Well, yeah, I'm just going to mention a couple more scenes that I quite liked.
Yeah, sure.
So, number one, which I think was visually, technically, and also, just the budget of it. It was probably one of the bigger. There were a few big budget scenes, not many, but towards the end. But when and it was just hilarious as well. It was just really well timed. Where Edward Norton is stripped of his rank. They go, they're at the head scout master, scout leader, and he strips him of his rank. You're a disgrace. And he goes, we're heading off now. And the guy goes, your medication. And so he's like, oh, okay. So he turns around and goes back to his little hut, which again is center shot. And then it was like, there's a shitload of water that just squirts, because the dam's broken. So all this water just comes out of nowhere and just floods the place. And then, what was it? Like lightning strikes and something just lands on his hut. And then fireworks explode in his hut. I was like, God, he is dead. But Edward Norton saves him. I was like, man, that was a really amazing sequence of shots. Because you're like, one, it's done in his style. Two, there's the dichotomy with the natural and the artificial. And, you've got everything there, like the walkways and the dam spillways and the house itself and the neighbouring tree, all in his perfect level, symmetrical style. It's shot that everybody is level and symmetrical to one another. So you got that. The comedy timing of that scene is hilarious. That he goes off. He's so in charge. Edward Norton, you're a disgrace. Goes in and then like basically looks like he's just hit the bucket or whatever. There's just all this bad crap happens to his shed.
Yeah.
And then just how like expensive it is, because it's like we've just seen a flood, a lightning strike, and something crashing into that little hut and explosions. I was like, man, that is a bloody cool series of shots. That was a good scene. I really like that scene.
I really like how Edward Norton gets demoted like he's a cop. Like, I have to take your badge and your penknife.
Yeah.
Like it's a police badge and a gun.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Although the Scoutmasters act more like the police than Bruce Willis, who is a goddamn policeman. And he's the only policeman on this island. Like, the real police are the Scouts.
Yeah. That was a good point, actually. I didn't really notice that. Yeah. So, score for directing, Boaz, what are you going for?
It is just like any Wes Anderson film. It is very pretty to look at, and it's so goddamn quirky. There are just Andersonisms that you'll never find anywhere else, and he stuffs this film with plenty of them. So. Yeah, maybe a 9 point... I'll go a 9, actually. I'll go a 9.
I think this is really impressive. I think I do prefer Grand Budapest Hotel.
Oh, yeah. I think I definitely do prefer Grand Budapest
But
Hotel.
there's certainly a great innocence to this film, and innocence quality, which I really like, and you just don't get that very often. And plus, where you go from this interior opening sequence, and then pretty much the entire film is outside, and I just love the fact that you don't lose the symmetrical, geometric style he has, even though there's nothing really to work with other than the actors and certain features. Yeah. So I really like that.
Well, I was actually going to say, like, another shot that was pretty good where he worked around the ungeometric nature of nature but moved it into his style was when he's looking for something. It turns out it's mustard. Yeah. Do you remember that? So they're stood there. He's going through some stuff. And then he's like, found it. And the camera turns around and he's got like a flat stone with like hot dogs and stuff. He's looking for the mustard to just put on these hot dogs.
Right.
Again, like a plate that's dead center and everything. It was very weird. And that the camera turns all the way around and stops immediately. He does that a lot, the camera. He does tracking shots which stop exactly where the characters are in the middle or where the action is.
Yeah, so I'll go like 8.9, I think. Right, screenplay then. I found the really odd, curious nature of Sam really interesting, where he meets Susie in a field, on the island. And then you kind of have this Mexican standoff, like I said in the plot, with these close-ups. And then we go back 1 year to where they first meet backstage at the theatre show, and Sam is in the audience and he decides to just leave his seat and have a look around. And then as soon as he sees Susie, he says, "What kind of a bird are you?" One of her friends says, "I'm a sparrow, she's a dove." And then Sam interrupts her and says, "No, I said, what kind of a bird are you?" And points at Susie and simply just says, "I'm a raven." And it's like Sam has this instant curiosity about this girl that only a boy of kind of his age would have, of like this love that he can't explain. The film has a wonderful like innocence to it, certainly in the script as well as the directing and the acting as well. All of those elements just really work really well in terms of that. There's a sequence in this film where I'm still thinking about like, why did they do that? It's a bit confusing, but I think it's really interesting still, though. Again, getting to this like childlike nature of these characters, where there's an interesting montage sequence where Sam and Susie are doing voiceovering their letters they wrote to each other.
Yeah, I quite like.
And they take it in turns, but each piece of their voiceover is cut off mid-sentence by the other one's voiceover, and it's kind of reminded me, like, as kids do sometimes, where they cut off each other's stories.
Yeah, where they constantly interrupt.
So they can tell their own story, like they're not really listening to what they're saying. Yeah, and it's like they're cutting off like the important parts about themselves. But what's interesting, at the end, they only actually listen to what the plan they should do, how they escape.
Yeah, I quite liked that sequence, especially just how it was written, because it's just funny, and even how it was filmed, where it's like they discover their letters and they've been going through it for some time. And just kind of the craziness, the crazy shit that both of these kids do. And they don't know why they're doing it. Like, they just... But it's like, my foster parents are angry at me. I said I didn't... I slept walk in the night and I burnt the... I burnt the shed down. I don't remember. They don't believe me. And it's like... Back to Susie. I broke a mirror and there's glass in my mother's hair. And it's like onto the next crazy shit, It just gets progressively more insane. They're meant for each other.
But they kind of like cut off about when they're, describing their personality or trying to ask a question or, getting to the nitty gritty of that scene,
And they'll just explain some other, terrible, distressing thing that happened to them. But I just love how it's kind of shown briefly. It's like, da-da-da-da, and then on to the next one, and it's, back and forth. It was kind of interesting, yeah.
I'm not sure I like the narrator in this film, as we kind of discussed briefly, from Bob Balaban, because there's a moment where he's narrating about the next island in the dark, and then he turns the light on right next to the camera, as you said, so you can see him, and you can see the kids escaping right behind him on the river. Again, it just takes me out of it a bit. The narrator does talk to the other characters too, which is odd as well.
Oh, yeah, he does.
When he's telling us these kind of pointless facts about the island after the storm, and I'm like, I don't care, I just want to know what happened to Susie and Sam. Did they survive? And I guess Wes Anderson wanted a more outside documentary voice in the film, but it just didn't work for me. But it works tonally, it just doesn't add anything interesting for me.
I think I agree with you. I think you can take away the character and the narrative of the film is not impacted whatsoever. It would probably be made better for it. And there's no real reason for him to be there. Maybe if he was an actual character rather than just somebody who just appears to tell you random facts. And it was kind of strange. Maybe they should have introduced him as a character first and maybe had this as some documentary he was doing after the incident so that it fits.
Or it was just a guy who's actually trying to make a nature documentary or something.
Yeah, and then just this stuff.
And all the characters kind of just interrupt him and stuff, or they just completely ignore him as they just walk past him, That feels kind of more Wes Anderson.
Yeah, what you said sounded Wes Anderson-y. Just sort of made up and...
I'll be his replacement soon. I quite liked it when Sam and Susie get caught on the beach and you're left wondering, oh, where is this going to go now? Because I was fully expecting that we were going to follow these two characters on the run until the end.
Yeah, same. Yeah, that came out as a shock.
But no, so it was a nice surprise when the other scouts decide to rescue them in this very cool heist way. Because they were going to give Sam shock therapy. Then the film really ramps up the pace, going from a great escape war film to a fugitive style film to a survival disaster film to a Thelma and Louise style ending where they almost die. Yeah. And I just love the mashup of all these different types of stories, and it works really well. Yet still keeping the Wes Anderson style and pace. I thought it was great that last half an hour.
I love just sort of the quirky over the top nature of a lot of the dialogue. I just think is phenomenal, especially stuff that involves Edward Norton's character, who just seems like he's trying to be taken seriously, But every scene he's in, you can't help but go, dude, this situation is so absurd. It's so absurd. How can you keep a straight face or just pretend you even know what the hell you're doing? I think one of my favorite actually is his introduction. I think this exemplifies him, where he's going around and making sure they're doing everything right. The scouts. Yeah. So the guy built the giant house on the tiny tree, tree house. He's like,
right at the top.
He's like, no, lower its elevation, and he just expects him to get on with it. And he just leaves. But my favorite one is he sees one of the kids with a big bottle of lighter fluid and a giant torch. He's like, what do you think you're doing? He's going, we've got an infestation of ants. I'm going to burn them out. he just looks at him and he goes, in proper shirt, you know, no buttons, no badges, where are your socks? Dress code violation, and just walks off. You're like, have you got any idea what you're just looking at? He's got a bottle of kerosene, for Christ's sake. He's going to kill himself. You know?
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah. There's some great lines in this as well, like from Scoutmaster Ward. He says when he finds that Sam is missing in his tent, you know, with a hole in the tent, which is just weird and quirky. He says, Jiminy Cricket, he flew the coop. He says to Susie, I'd like to pitch camp here by 1600, which means 4 o'clock. How's that sound? Fish in hook. Reel him in slowly.
Yeah. Oh, I love that where he gave her earrings. That was funny. Yeah. It was just like, it was insects with fish hooks. And like he had just pierced some insects. It's like, I've got you earrings. It's like, are your ears pierced? And then it's just like, ah! He's putting the earring on. And she looks in the mirror.
It's blood coming down.
Yeah, blood coming in. She looks in the mirror. It's beautiful. Put the other one in. You know? It's just stuff like that I really like.
I think she still has blood, doesn't she, when she does that? It's possible I may wet the bed, by the way.
Yeah, that's exactly the one I was going to say. Yeah, that is literally...
Later, I mean.
Dude, literally, that was exactly the line I was going to say. Yeah, that was fun.
I didn't want to mention it, but just in case, I didn't want you to be offended. Of course I wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Of course I wouldn't. You know.
I love every time like she's reading stories to him, because that's adorable. And she's reading very like clinically, very just to the point. Blah, 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 this happened, this happened. And then she'll stop and then look if he's paying attention. And like he was smoking a pipe and he's like, continue, I'm listening. Carry on.
He's not even smoking either.
Yeah, he's just pretending.
He's just got the pipe in there.
I love that later they do the same scene, but with all the scouts. And they're all sat down listening to her. And then she's like looking around. It's like, we're listening, just carry on, you know.
My favourite line, though, is from, of course, Bill Murray is in this film. Yeah. He's in the house with his shirt off, holding a bottle of wine, grabs an axe, and just says, I'll be out back. I'm going to find a tree to chop down. Yeah. And he just walks off and chops the tree down. It's so random. It's hilarious.
I think one of my favourite scenes is Bill Murray, but it's a different one, where they're at, like, the wharf or the dock or whatever, and Bill Murray he's just heard... You know, that they basically ran off with the kid and they can't find them. They've been trying. And he just goes to Edward Norton. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? You know, he just goes off on it. You know, you have no control over your scouts? And Edward Norton is like, I'm trying the best I can. And he just picks up his shoe and throws it at him. You know?
That was hilarious. Ward like tries to dodge it really badly. It just kind of hits him with no like dramatic sound effect at all. Yeah. And Bill Murray just has this very like passive aggressive look. The fact that he decides to throw the shoe is just so funny. Like he's too scared to walk up to him and punch him. You know? Even though he does try to a little bit, but it's funny that he just decides to throw the shoe. You know? Have you got a favourite line?
I think that was really funny. Like, you know, I'm trying my best, and then he chucked a shoe at him. I thought that was really funny.
You got a score then for screenplay?
I think I might edge the directing out over the screenplay. I'll give it like an 8.4.
Oh, okay. Your directing score was 9, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Maybe 8.6.
You know, I just love this innocent nature this film has with these kids. It's so brilliant. And the change of tone halfway through when they do get caught, you know, it just becomes a completely different story.
Oh, when they get caught with... That was also another scene I really liked. And again, it's with Bill Murray. He's in so little of this film, but he's so amazing.
Yeah.
But I like when he unzips the tent because they hear noise, unzips the tent, sees Bill Murray and just everybody there, and then zips it down again. And Bill Murray charges at the tent and just lifts it above his head.
It was great gag. But it's just I didn't like the narrator. I just didn't feel like you needed a narrator in this film.
Yeah,
so...
I do agree with you. I don't think there was really much point of him being there.
So I'll go like 8.3. All right, acting then. A lot of the jokes for me like come from their acting, like how they deliver dialogue, especially in your film as well. A lot of the humour comes from the delivery of very mundane things. I love the joke where Mr. Bishop and Captain Sharp and Mrs. Bishop find out Susie and Sam have run away, and they go through their things, and Mr. Bishop, played by Bill Murray, is holding a picture. And he says, "Holy Christ, what am I looking at?" Mrs. Bishop says, played by Frances McDormand, like, "He does watercolors, mostly landscapes, but a few nudes." You know, and McDormand just says it with a completely blank face, like it's not weird at all. You get a lot of that in this film, you know.
Yeah.
It's just very expressionless in the acting from the whole cast, which works so well for this type of straight comedy.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it definitely works if you have, like, somebody not being weirded out by something outlandish and like somebody who is, and it just I think it's that kind of tonal sort of discrepancy. You're like, hang on a minute, because a lot of people are cool with some really weird shit, and then when you see somebody overreact, you're like, whoa, you know. It's just that ebb and flow of like, because it can be like, why aren't any of you guys overreacting? That's strange. And then you get so used to that when somebody overreacts, you go, oh, hang on a minute, that's a bit strange.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite funny. It's always funny when that happens. So one thing I'm thinking is, do you remember where they phoned up his parents?
Oh, yeah.
They phoned up his parents. And
oh, yeah, we don't want him.
Yeah, and they were just like,
screw that guy.
Say something quite, serious. We can't find him. And he goes, well, if you do find him, you've got to tell him he can't live with us anymore. It's like, excuse me, what? And he just keeps repeating that. Like, why aren't you shocked? Well, he's an orphan, so we just don't want him. And then I love Bruce Willis's reaction. What the hell am I supposed to do with him? Like, and he's like, call social services. I don't know. It's not our problem.
The little dance sequence from Sam and Susie on the beach is really weird. They play like this very slow French music, and Sam starts dancing to it really quickly while Susie dances normally to it. Then Sam kisses her, then spits just to the side and says, "I got sand in my mouth." And then they work out how to French kiss.
Yeah.
Like his instruction, trying to work it out methodically.
Tilt your head to the side.
Yeah, where he says, tilt your head to the side. And then he just, touches her chest again. And then throughout, just completely straight faces. It's just really hilarious.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's really refreshing to see a film with Bruce Willis in a comedy film like this. And I think he's really good in it too.
I had no idea he was going to be in it. Bill Murray, I think, makes sense in a Wes Anderson film. But I had no idea Bruce Willis was going to be in it. And, he surprised me. I thought he did a really good job. He hits all the beats. Great. His lines are hilarious.
He doesn't feel out of place either at all.
He doesn't feel out of place, which is strange because just that pick of actor would seem out of place, but he's just not out of place in this film.
It's just a shame what's happened to Bruce Willis's career now. He's just not in anything good.
No. I just think he doesn't give a shit anymore. That's the general feeling I get from Bruce Willis now. He's lost.
Yeah.
It just feels like a paycheck. Anything you see him in now, he's like phoning it in. You just get through it. He's doing crap films probably because they're the only offers he gets, and he just phones it in and then gets paid and then just leaves.
Yeah. Do you know about the Game of Thrones story?
No, what happened that?
In season 4, they were filming the Viper and the mountain fight in Croatia, and for the wide shots, Bruce Willis's yacht was in the background. Obviously, they tried to get him to move, but he had a megaphone. He's like, "No, fuck you." So they literally had to just shoot around him. So it's just, he's just like, yeah, I don't give a shit. I ain't moving my boat.
Just leave me alone.
Just sad, really, with his film choices now. I wish he'd do more comedies like this.
Yeah.
So my favourite performance is Jared Gilman, who plays Sam, the little kid. What's your favourite performance?
I think that boy does a really good job, and he holds most of the film together. So I would be tempted to pick him, but dude, every time Bill Murray's on screen, and he's not there that much, I cherish him. I just cherish him so much. And it should come as no surprise
that there's loads of Bill Murray posters behind you.
Yeah. And an action figure and a doll.
Yeah.
Sculpture. And Bill Murray himself is in my closet.
All right. Yeah.
But I just think, whatever script you give him, he's always on point, man. He's just really great at the humor. He can be given very little, and then just how he performs it just leaves me in hysterics. So I just think he's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'd give it to Bill Murray.
Acting score?
I'll go 8.7.
Yeah, I think the performances in this are really great. And as I said, Bruce Willis doesn't feel out of place as well. I think he's one of the best performers. Again, this cast is insane. You know, you got Tilda Swinton in there as well, Frances McDormand, Bill Murray, just loads of other regulars from Wes Anderson, Edward Norton, Harvey Keitel.
Harvey Keitel, yeah, that's it. Yeah. I was going to say Mr. Wolf because I can never remember his name.
And the kids are front and center as well, and they hold this film. Yeah. They're brilliant. And I think this type of dry comedy is actually really difficult to keep a straight face with this hilarious dialogue. So I'm going to go like 8.7 as well, I think. Right, let's add up the scores then for Moonrise Kingdom. Moonrise Kingdom gets 52.2.
Nice.
Which is pretty good.
Pretty good.
Right, Mr. Encyclopedia Man, what is your film for Wes Anderson films? I suspect a film with lots of cussing.
What the cuss did you say to me, you cuss? Yeah, it's the Fantastic Cussing Fox. Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Nice. And why did you pick this one?
Because I've seen it before. I saw it on TV a while ago. I read the Roald Dahl book to my brother when he was very young as well, so that was good. So, you know, this is one of the few that I've actually seen what it's based off of, you know, if it's a book or whatever.
Yeah.
And I saw it one time on TV and I was hooked on it. I thought it was delightfully strange. And it's like, you know, I said before, it's really my only, you know, before we did this podcast, my only exposure to Wes Anderson.
So is the book better or the film?
I mean, they're different. They're very different. Yeah, man, I like the film. I think the film's great.
So what happens in Fantastic Mr. Fox?
It's about the Fantastic Mr. Fox, played by
Batman.
Yeah, George Clooney. That's the one. Got his name.
Yes. Yeah. The really obscure actor, George Clooney.
I think he's a newcomer on the scene, really. I don't think he's been in much. Yeah, so no fox nipples in this film.
No.
Anybody who doesn't know much about Batman, that's going to come off as a very strange thing. Yeah. So it's about him and his wife and what have you. He's part of a collection of anthropomorphic animals. Just every animal in this film talks. So he's a fox to start with, just as any other fox, doing fox things with his wife. Case in point, stealing chickens from chicken farmers. I think actually they're stealing squawks. Yeah, something like that at the start of the film.
Whatever a squawk is, I think they say.
Yeah, I think she's like, "What the hell is a squawk?"
Just chickens, I think.
It's like a small chicken or something. So they get captured and they do escape, but she reveals to him that she's pregnant and that when they escape and then the baby's born, that he's got to stop doing this. You know, he's got to stop stealing chickens. So he agrees and he becomes a writer for a newspaper, which is, again, just kind of pretty random. And so his son has this feeling, his son Ash really wants to be like his dad, but he's nothing like him. You know, he's not as cunning or as clever or as strong or as agile or whatever. And they also get like a visitor, like his nephew arrives because his father is dying of double pneumonia. And Christopherson, who is just amazing at everything. It's kind of like... So this makes Ash pretty jealous. But with Mr. Fox, he decides to move from their hole in the ground to a tree. And he's tempted when he sees the tree because the tree overlooks 3 plots of land owned by Boggis Bunsen Bean. A chicken farmer, a goose and duck farmer, and Bean is a turkey and apple cider farmer.
Yeah.
And so he decides to, without, you know, telling his wife, and with a friend of his who's a possum, steal the food from, you know, go back to his old ways because, you know, he misses the thrill.
Yeah.
This comes back to bite him when all 3 farmers hunt him and his entire family and all of the woodland creatures mercilessly, trying to get to Mr. Fox. So that's essentially the plot.
So this is Wes Anderson's like second animated film. His other one was Isle of Dogs. Have you seen that one?
I haven't, but I really have wanted to.
Yeah, that's really good as well. Like it kind of actually has. It goes kind of like a step further in the animation, in the cartoonish style, if you know what I mean. Okay. But I think this film is probably a little bit better. Yeah, and I think it was because this was his first animated film, I think. and I just do get the sense that it was just inevitable that Wes Anderson was going to do an animated film, certainly in this kind of stop motion style, because both Grand Budapest and Moonrise Kingdom, the ones that we've seen, certainly do have such a cartoonish style to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's animated sequences in Grand Budapest as well, so it was just inevitable, really.
And also, like, the thing with Wes Anderson is he loves rich colours, yeah? So he loves colour.
Yeah.
And I mean, what can be more colourful than something inked on a pair, you know, or put in props or whatever? So, you know, a cartoon just sort of makes some sense, or animation of any kind makes a lot of sense for Wes Anderson. And again, as we were saying, like the cartoonish nature of his characters, and he should do more, actually. I think he should just do lots and lots of stop motion, or maybe even try his hand at other animation types.
All right, directing then. I love the practically glowing gag where they just change Mrs. Fox into a nightlight, basically, which is quite funny after they find out she's pregnant. Yeah. And then obviously they come back to that at the end where Mr. Fox is glowing as well.
Oh, yeah, because she's pregnant again. It's like, you're glowing again. In fact, with both arms. Like...
Yeah. You know, I appreciate the gag, but I just felt they were really statuesque and they could hardly move in there because there's basically a nightlight. Yeah. Then the following sequence, after you see the gag for the first time, you get loads of classic Anderson tracking shots. But the foxes looked really small to me and not to scale. I mean, we don't see foxes very often, but surely they're a bit bigger than that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can't put a fox in your hand. Like they are quite small. I mean, do you remember the one where he's hiding behind? He's the same size as a rat, for Christ's sake. Like that's his arch enemy. Like that doesn't make any sense. I think the rat's the size of about a fox's nose. You know, so scale is not something in this film.
Even though there's a mouse though at one point, which is absolutely tiny. Yeah, which I think probably is to scale.
Yeah, the only creature is to scale. But everybody else is about the same size.
But yeah, the rat is fucking massive if it's the same size as the fox.
Yeah, he might even be taller than Mr. Fox, and he's very, very lanky.
But I do find the models of the animals quite creepy at times. I don't know if you found that.
Yeah, sometimes.
But the human character's even creepier, especially the short, fat one, Nate Bunce. He looks like a zombie from the 70s, like straight out of Dawn of the Dead, for me.
Yeah, I think you're right. Very pale, otherworldly sort of appearance to him.
Yeah, they have a very pale design to the human characters, which I guess adds to the evil quality to them, the antagonists of the film.
Yeah, I love the look of Bean, who, who's the main antagonist of the film. And I love his character as well, because he's a no-nonsense badass, really.
Yeah, certainly the animals done in stop motion does make them creepy, especially like in the close-up shots. I was just like, oh god, too close, come out please.
I think the running gag that I always found creepy is where Possum is listening to his plans, and then it just zooms close into Possum, and his eyes are just like swirls, and he keeps doing that. They keep doing that. It's like, are you even listening to me? It's like...
Yeah.
Can you give me a sign sometimes?
Yeah. Yeah, it puts his hand. Yeah. It's like he's being hypnotized by Mr. Fox, because obviously Mr. Fox a fox is normally have opossums for lunch, I suppose. But Mr. Fox doesn't understand what's happening, because in this world all the animals are on an even playing field. No talking animals eats another talking animal, So it's quite a nice gag, though. I like the digging chase scene, which was quite inventive, where the camera is on like the outside of the hole, like a Worms video game. You remember Worms? That was cool.
I remember Worms.
Banana bombs.
Yeah, a holy hand grenade.
Sheep bombs. Yeah. And the farmers are using these like massive diggers to make a massive crater under the tree, and you just see like the light from their diggers at the top of the crater. And I like the moment when the fat farmer sits on the fox's chair. That just made me giggle, because it's obviously very small. Yeah. And he's very big. Yeah. I think my favorite like sequence for me is the really creative fight scene with the rat, played by Willem Dafoe, where he's like clicking his fingers, and you have this brilliant like straight POV shot as he pushes the family out of the way to get to Ash. And then Mr. Fox comes in and they have a fight in this like electrical power room.
Yeah, that was cool.
And it's in total darkness, but every time they get zapped, light flashes and you see the models are in like a still frame as the light bounces around them.
It was like superhero panels off of a comic book.
Yeah.
Like...
And then the rat dies in like cartoon 2D animation.
Yeah.
Just really cleverly done, that sequence. And you can really tell the filmmakers have thought about how they can use the models with light, not just how they can move, which I thought was really impressive. Have you got a favourite shot or a scene?
When Bean hears that he's raided all the farms because they're hungry, they're trying to starve them out, and they dig through and raid all the farms. I just love how Bogus and Bunce are like, oh man, this was a bad idea. We shouldn't have done this. And Bean just stands up, is completely silent, and just wrecks the entire room. I just love that. Great. Just goes outside, breaks a guitar, throws a bike, just losing his shit. I thought that was great. Christopherson's dive, the first time you see that he's actually good at something. Yeah. That was funny. Like Ash does a dive, and he's like flailing around, bang, hits the water. Oh, that was great, Dad, wasn't it? I'm an athlete, And then Christopherson jumps, does several flips and corkscrew twists. And when he lands in the water, you just get like, just like this single droplet fly out of the pool.
I loved all of like the creative POV shots, like when they get chased by dogs. The dog is kind of like fairly still in the center.
Yeah. It's like the camera is attached to the, like it's a GoPro to the dog.
And as they're chasing the other characters, that character is going crazy, across the screen. That's great. Again, just such a great cartoony feel to this, like Tom and Jerry. Right, score then for directing for me. Certainly for a first time at animation and stop motion as well, which is very, very rarely done. And you kind of like Ardenham does that sort of thing now. And others, actually.
I think the only two I can think of
it's very rarely done,
The only big two I can think of is Aardman. So Aardman and Laika, they're basically the only two I really know. But,
so for Wes Anderson to do stop motion animation for the first time is really impressive, and to do it so well is really great. And I just feel like they've really thought about how they can use these puppets, these models and puppets at times. I don't know. I've not really looked into it too much of how it was done, but yeah, I thought it was really impressive. Just really visually impressive, and a lot of like visual gags that worked really well.
And I think one of the very impressive thing, which is again to his style, is he, as we've said many times, he likes center shot stuff. He likes to do close-ups as well. So he loves like extreme close-ups.
Creepy though.
But he having extreme close-ups of a a stop motion model, and have it just like boom, it's Mrs. Fox, and you see her like talking, but then even stopping and like wincing or having a tear go down her eye or something. It's like fucking hell. How long did that take you? It's just crazy just to get like a nice shot like that.
But yeah, as you said, but he still like keeps his traditional directing style, even with animation, with their long tracking shots, and a lot of it's symmetrical as well.
Yeah, a lot of center shots,
geometrically pleasing. So I'll go like 8.6. How about you, sir?
Yeah. I'll go like a 8.8, I think.
Cool. Right, screenplay then. This is obviously based on Roald Dahl's book. I find it really interesting in this film where you have like animals personified as humans, but work into the story that they're actually wild animals. The characters are very aware of what they are. Whereas in most animated films where animals are like humans, they just act like humans for the comedy that just comes from what they look like. The story has nothing really to do with them as animals. And I think the only film that does a similar thing is Zootropolis. But this film takes the concept to another intriguing level when they're on the bike and they see like a black wolf in the wild. And they both kind of like Mr. Fox and the wolf wave at each other. And it's like all these characters could be completely wild if they wanted to, if they chose that life. But they survive like wild foxes anyway, wild animals anyway, as they have all they can eat in this supermarket at the end. You know, Mr. Fox describes his friends and family like wild animals. So in the end, they are animals that act like humans, but they live their lives like wild animals anyway. You can create brilliant visual and written comedy with this concept. It's just really well done, I think, with the script.
Yeah. I think one of my favourite scenes that like kicks the... just for the dialogue of it, it's just hilarious. But then it kicks the plot into gear is where he buys or he's trying to buy a house, and the first house he sees is the tree, and
the tree estate.
Yeah, the tree estate. And so he's deciding to buy that. So he talks to his badger.
Yeah, Bill Murray.
Yeah, who I suppose is in charge of like giving him a loan, a mortgage or something. I can't remember.
Yeah,
like a bank. He's in the bank. And he's discussing, I'm going to get that treehouse, and he explains to him Bogus Bunsen Bean, and I just love the exchange where he's like, I would recommend you don't get this house, and Mr. Fox is like, I understand what you're saying, but I'm going to ignore your advice, and he's like, the cuss you are, and he's like, the cuss am I? Are you cussing with me? No, you better not cuss with me. You cussing little cussing. And I just love it. And then they get really aggressive. They start snarling and they get their claws out. Rah, rah. Yeah. And then they just sit back down. And he's like, I'm buying that house. Okay. Because it's that just Wes Anderson thing of just being absolutely ridiculous and then just being like so chill.
Yeah. But like the pacing of this film really goes like a freight train. As well as the dialogue being delivered really quickly, it's scene after scene after scene. Each scene is like a maximum of like 2 minutes long. Even the animation, they're not afraid to animate the characters like really quickly as well to keep the pace up. Before you know it, the film's over. You're like, oh, bloody hell. That was quick. But even like with the more tender moments, it doesn't feel out of place, even though they are quite short anyway. The film just has a really great balance to it for a fairly short film. It goes really quickly. Yeah. And certainly in a film like this, in animation, I think you kind of have to keep the pace up, because if you slow down too much, you're just going to get bored really quickly. Yeah.
It does keep your attention. Every scene keeps your attention. And, I think they're just brief so that they grab you, like that scene. Oh my God, that's crazy. You move on to the next one. One scene I thought was pretty funny because it's a repeat of a previous scene. So with Bean's wife, damn, she's scary. She's scary. And I think she's actually, when we were talking about scary character models, I think she's probably the scariest. She is absolutely terrifying. Right. She looks like just a rectangle head and like two giant eyes. She looks truly, she's really lanky and stuff. And I love when she goes to get the cider and it's like, how many bottles do you want? And Mr. Fox is pretending he's hiding under one of the bottles.
Behind it. Yeah.
And she picks 2 bottles because he's like 3. Picks 2, and like she picks 3, and like he's right there, and he's pretending to be a bottle. And then she's like, "No, 2's enough," and puts it back in front of him. And it's a running joke because they're like, "She's blind as a bat." It's like maybe she's got cataracts or something. And then with Christopherson and Ash, they try to steal their father's tail back. They go into the kitchen, eat a lot of her biscuits, and she comes in again with the shopping and walks straight past them. And they're like, my God, she really is blind as a bat. And then she goes off into a cupboard, looking through the cupboard, and then comes back with 2 a pair of oversized glasses and a knife. I like that. It was just a really well done scene of just like build up the suspense.
And these biscuits actually looked really nice. They looked
really tasty.
I was like, they look real. I want some.
A lot of the food looks really damn nice, actually.
Again, there's a lot of cool lines. When they describe one of the farmers, Bunce, I think, Nate Bunce, the fat one. Nate Bunce is a duck and goose farmer. He's approximately the size of a pot-bellied dwarf, and his chin would be underwater in the shallow end of any swimming pool on the planet. I just love that description.
Yeah. I love this line. You remember when they have all their workers, 116 guys dig, and they have a break, and one of them, starts playing a song about Mr. Fox as him and his family are digging around. Do you remember that? Yeah. And it just reminds me of like John Lennon or something. And he's just like, yibbity doo da, yibbity da da, yibbity da da, and he's just saying nonsense stuff. And I love how Bean just comes up behind him and goes, Pete, what the hell are you? What are you talking about? He goes, I'm just making it up as I go along. That's weak songwriting, Pete. That is a bad song.
Harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be a total cluster cuss for everybody.
Yeah, I love that they do the whole cuss gag so freely. It's quite funny.
I love the rat in this film. It's like when he sees Mrs. Fox, he says, "Look at you, girl. You're still as fine looking as a creme brulee."
Yeah.
And I like creme brulees. People should describe people as creme brulees more often in films. It's a nice pudding.
Yeah. I like Mr. Fox in general and his just very sort of matter-of-fact way of explaining things. I think it's quite funny. And he's very sarcastic and stuff.
My favourite line, though, is a sequence of lines from The Mole and Mr. Fox. The Mole says, "I just want to see a little sunshine." And then Mr. Fox says, "But you're nocturnal, Phil. Your eyes barely even open on a good day." It's like, "I'm sick of your double talk. We have rights."
Yeah.
I just found that hilarious.
There's just some brilliant lines in there.
You got a favourite then?
That's weak songwriting, Pete. That's fun. That was a funny line. Do you remember when she's obviously pissed off and she takes him to the corner and is like, "I'm going to lose my temper." He goes, "When? Right now." "What, right now?" Like, he's like, "Well," and then she just like scratches him just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, when? Right now?
Screenplay score then, I will go with 8.5, I think. How about you, sir?
I'm going to go 8.9.
Nice.
Yeah.
Voice acting then.
Yeah, the voice acting's great.
Yeah, you mentioned when they, they have this cussing fight when Mr. Fox sees the badger, and there's a scene before when like Mr. Fox like gobbles up his like breakfast really quickly like a wild animal.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, is that actually just George Clooney, or have they added something here? I wasn't entirely sure, but then when you get to the cussing fight with the badger, it's like, no, when they're growling, like, no, that's definitely just the actors.
Yeah.
You can definitely tell, you can hear the human tones in there.
Yeah, that's quite fun.
So that was kind of interesting. But in like Wes Anderson's live action films, so much of the comedy comes from the actors' like blank, straight faces as they say these hilarious lines. But with this film, it's all animation. So they use a lot of more visual comedy than his live action work. But there are certainly moments of humor in this film when the lines are delivered like really dryly. The comedy in the dialogue works well. Like near the end, when Ash is rescuing Christopherson and Ash is trying to apologize, and Christopherson says, "Oh, you mean from before, the apology you owed me, which you never really actually said." It's said really quickly to create this really awkward, dry humor that Wes Anderson is so good at. He keeps the same style of humor in delivery, like Moonrise Kingdom, as well as in this film. It's very similar.
Do you remember that quick exchange where he was like, "By the way, I don't have like fleas and ticks"? He's like, "Who said you did?"
Yeah.
"Well, I'm pretty sure you've been spreading out." "I have." "No, I haven't. I don't know who you got it from, but I'll find out whoever was saying this." And and he goes, "By the way, I don't think that's the worst thing that could be said of you. You do that meditation thing. That's weird. I would be more worried about that, on your reputation." He's like, "By the way, I don't have flies and ticks." But I just think it's just really funny how they do these quick back and forth.
Yeah.
Who played Ash, actually?
Jason Schwartzman.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Meryl Streep plays Mrs. Fox.
Oh, okay.
Michael Gambon plays...
Yeah, Michael Gambon was awesome.
Mr. Bean.
Yeah.
Franklin Bean, the farmer.
Yeah, I would think Michael Gambon...
He was great as that guy.
I think Michael Gambon is my favourite in the cast. Yeah.
I really like Willem Dafoe, actually, as the rat. Just this really kind of sassy, chilled out rat.
You were saying like his clicking style and his way of speaking. It's West Side Story, right? It's he's doing the whole knife fight thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I think my favourite is actually George Clooney. I think he certainly gets most of the lines, and I think he's really great in this. So acting score, I'll go voice acting rather. I will go.
Well, you got to put the puppets in there as well. They've done their share of the acting.
So I'll go like 8.3. How about you, sir?
Yeah, I think I'll go the same, actually.
Cool. Right, let's add up the scores for Fantastic Mr. Fox. Ooh, Fantastic Mr. Fox gets 51.4. So it's a tight one. Moonrise Kingdom gets 52.2. So Moonrise Kingdom wins this week.
Wow, that's close. Yeah, I agree. Moonrise Kingdom is just slightly better, but it's still pretty damn good,
yeah. Yeah. Next week, as another adaptation of Frank Herbert's classic sci-fi book, Dune, is out, and its filmmaker is Denis Villeneuve. So we'll be having a look at our favourite Denis Villeneuve films. And, of course, we've already picked Arrival in Amy Adams films. I certainly wouldn't have picked that one anyway, but there we go. So, yeah, that'll be cool. Again, if you really like what we hear, you can follow the show notes below and click on the Buy Me a Coffee link. And if you want to show your appreciation, just say thanks. Buy us a coffee, a couple of quid or dollars would be amazing.
Or pesos or ruples.
Yeah. So, Baz, you've been such a cuss today. It's been rather good.
You've been a little cuss.
See ya. Bye. Right. That's it for this week's pod. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to find out more about the podcast or suggest future topics for us to discuss related to upcoming releases, let us know on Instagram at Film vs. Film Podcast and on Twitter at FVF_podcast. Remember, please subscribe. Pod signing off.